Jack Ma is a man who has always been in the news, especially after he became China's richest man. His rise to the top of the money league was a true reflection of China's growing global influence on an economic level, and he remained the darling of the Chinese government for years, but all that changed within the space of a few months. What happened to Jack Ma and the Chinese communist regime? Why did they fall apart, and what does the future hold for the CEO of Alibaba? This video reveals all. September 2009 was the year, and the Hangzhou Yellow Dragon Stadium was the venue that hosted Alibaba employees to a spectacle that has continued to be a reference point in Chinese pop culture. As Jack Ma made his entrance into the packed stadium donning a brilliant costume, 16,000 employees of his company rose to their feet and applauded his sense of style. Just in case you don't know who Jack Ma is, the Chinaman is the founder and majority shareholder of Alibaba, a company on whose board he serves as the CEO. Jack Ma is also the richest man in China with a net worth of about $50.6 billion, according to Bloomberg. Behind him are Tencent's owner Ma Huateng, Zhong Shangshang of Nongfu Spring, Sun Paiyong of Jiangsu Hengri Medicine, and He Zhanglian of Midea. Sitting at the top of China's rich list came with a lot of benefits and soft power, but if recent developments are anything to go by, it seems that the tech billionaire has overplayed his hand. In October 2020, at an economic summit in Shanghai, Mr. Ma openly rebuked finance regulators for their attitude towards big business enterprises. The billionaire businessman went on to accuse them of having a pawn shop mentality that stifled Chinese innovation. In his own words, he said, "We shouldn't use the way to manage a train station to regulate an airport. We cannot regulate the future with yesterday's mean." Now, from the outside looking in, one might assume Mr. Ma's comments to be completely harmless and simply an observation made public by a Chinese citizen. But if you know the history and politics of China, you'll realize that the Communist Party of China operates in deep secrecy, and criticism of the government in any way, shape or form is not tolerated. Furthermore, the Communist Party is very concerned about optics and go to extreme lengths to protect their image both at home and abroad. So you see, an open critique of regulatory practices by a public and influential figure like Jack Ma wasn't something the Party of China was going to tolerate. Many have observed that last October was not the first time Mr. Ma had criticized the government of President Xi Jinping, but this occasion marked the first time he had done so at a grand stage with the whole world watching. Unlike in Western countries where freedom of speech is a fundamental human right, in China this is not the case. The state media regulates the general inflow and outflow of news, and errant citizens are punished for falling out of line. Was this a clash between two men, President Xi Jinping and Mr. Ma? The immediate reaction to Mr. Ma's Shanghai comments was that the said comments were a direct attack on the leader of the Chinese Communist Party, President Xi Jinping. But one may be tempted to ask, if Mr. Xi was not at the summit and Jack Ma did not mention his name in any way, how then could his comments be attributed to the head of the Chinese government? Well, look no further than the man who spoke before Mr. Ma took the stage, Wang Qishan. Regarded by many as a right-hand man of President Xi, had spoken earlier about the need to ensure safe regulation of mega business so that large corporations did not end up becoming masters of the state. The fear of CCP leaders had always been the possibility of losing their power and influence to billionaires who operated using Western economic ideals and approach. For Mr. Ma to contradict the official position of the government in such a way was quite telling and indicative of the threats they have been trying to quell all these years. For a man like Jack Ma, who understands Chinese politics better than most due to his proximity to power, his comments were careless and not well thought before he made them, and it seems he is already paying dearly for it. After his comments at the Shanghai summit, Jack Ma and two of his high-ranking staff were summoned by financial regulators to answer questions relating to the floating of an online finance company, Ant Group. The following day, in a shocking twist, the planned IPO launch of Ant was cancelled and the digital payment system disbanded. This closure was a financial blow to Mr. Ma's portfolio, as the move cost him $35 billion in potential earnings. In their defense, regulators cited major issues with Ant's public offering and business practices, but insiders knew that there was more to the story. The truth is, Mr. Ma was made to pay a huge price for stepping out of line, and the disillusion of Ant's digital payment system was a price he had to pay. As a direct consequence of the closure, Alibaba, Ant's parent company, saw an 8% drop in its share price, further whittling down Jack Ma's net worth by as much as $2 billion. As if things couldn't get any worse for the former English teacher, regulators ordered further investigation into the alleged monopolistic practices of Alibaba and Tencent, another tech firm, and the owners of the app TikTok. The investigation into Alibaba's business practices is something insiders have been calling for in recent times. These same allegations were leveled against other firms like Google, Facebook, and Amazon. Regulators also had concerns that the rise of Ant's small online loans may unsettle the Chinese financial system. Now, for a government that prides itself on control, they were never going to let that happen. However, we will be naive to assume that Jack Ma's dissent didn't play a role in the eventual cancellation of Ant's IPO and subsequent dissolution. What more do we have to see? A tech billionaire mounts the stage, embarrasses regulators and the vice president, condemns their practices, and a few days later, his IPO is dissolved. What has Ant's IPO got to do with one man's comment? Well, the answer is obvious. The CCP and President Xi are not only punishing Ma, but also sending out a signal to other potential critics of the government. This message is clear. The supremacy of the state should never be questioned. If you step out of line, you will be punished. Furthermore, in China, many believe that Mr. Xi Jinping personally got involved, especially since his administration has always emphasized an abject rejection of business autonomy, but the adoption of a network of business whose interests must align with the state. Soon after the cancellation of Ant's IPO, Jack Ma went missing for 3 months. There were speculations that he had fled the country fearing arrest. Others said he was cooling off at a golf course and keeping a low profile. What made his disappearance obvious was when he failed to appear on his TV talent show, Africa Business Heroes. His last-minute replacement sent the rumour mills into overdrive. After much speculation, he appeared on a 48-second video from a secret location like he was in a hostage situation. In the video, he said, and I quote, "My colleagues and I have been learning and thinking, and we have become more determined to devote ourselves to education and public welfare." He made no mention of his long absence of the Ant IPO debacle. Rather, he addressed teachers at a rural school and spoke about uplifting the poor in rural areas. Immediately after the video was released, Alibaba's share price went up by 8%, and many expected him to announce a date when he would return to public life, but none was forthcoming. It is also pertinent to note that his comments about rural revitalization and common prosperity are essential concepts of President Xi Jinping's economic policy. This opens the room to different interpretations. Was Jack Ma speaking from the heart, or was he only repeating communist propaganda like he was told to? No one really knows, but what we do know is that Jack Ma's wings have been clipped, and other Chinese entrepreneurs and investors have taken notice. Bringing up patriotic entrepreneurs has been a centerpiece of the new vision espoused by the CCP, and in recent times, young Chinese entrepreneurs have been encouraged to align themselves with the president's vision for the country. Unlike in the US, where the words of Bill Gates carry a lot of weight, or where a Jack Dorsey can shut a sitting president out of Twitter, the Chinese CCP is a different monster to contend with. Taking out a personality as influential as Jack Ma is an easy task for the ruling party, and the moneybags in the country know it. And how has the public reacted to the news? The reaction has been mixed. As it stands, there is already a growing anti-communist sentiment, particularly among tribal minorities and a section of the younger population. People in this group sympathize with Jack Ma, and many of them consider him a hero and a prisoner of conscience. On the other side of the divide are those who see Ma as a traitor to the state. Despite global outrage regarding how the CCP handled the coronavirus pandemic, many people in China still consider President Xi a hero and back him to the tilt. Any affront against the man they regard as core leader is a personal attack in their view. This division is what makes Mr. Ma's position very dicey. Without widespread popular support, he just might be a sitting duck if he doesn't toe party lines. With so much to lose and not enough support in China, the tech billionaire will do well to keep his opinions to himself and do as he is told. That is what the state and President Xi expects of him. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and thanks for watching.